Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Tarology beginners class. The objective of our session today is to have you leave here feeling like you've created a solid foundation to stand on and grow from as you learn to read tarot and as you progress in your practice. We're going to use mostly the visual symbolic elements given to us by the cards, along with the numerology that permeates the deck. We'll go like very briefly over the history as well, just like where the cards came from. I am using the Waite Smith or Smith Waite deck, but these tools that I want to give to you today, you can use on any 78 card tarot deck. My personal methods, which I'm teaching you, have developed out of a large sort of pool of influences. And when I first started, what was most difficult for me was to see beyond the book. As soon as I got my deck, the first thing I really did was, shuffle them, look at the cards, etc. I had no idea what they meant. I had no idea what they were for, what they were trying to tell me, like nothing. And there was a little book in the box, and it told me how to lay out a spread and how to read the cards according to these specific meanings. And I spent a long time doing that, feeling very out of touch with the cards and with the practice as a whole, just like I was playing myself really, or fortune telling, or just there was just that the magic of it I hadn't really felt yet in the beginning. It didn't feel like what I thought it was supposed to feel. After studying first Jodorowsky and his methods with the Marseille, I started to see different patterns between the cards that I hadn't noticed before. Firstly, I noticed something that didn't occur to me at all, which was that really all the cards are the same. They all resemble each other in some way. They all connect with each other. The major arcana is its own grand story, while the minor arcana are all of these different aspects or perspectives that might be experienced or come up against on the grand journey, on the universal journey. At the same time, I was studying in literature, occultism, and dream symbolism, alchemy, and started seeing all of these different connections between the presence of symbolism, archetypal symbolism in the cards, and their presence in mythologies, and their presence in our dreams and personal psychology, and at sometimes the roots of our complexes. And little by little, I grew into a practice partly and partly developed because, as you'll see, your practice, everyone's practice is going to be their own. It's going to be your own development out of everything you've learned and seen from other teachers and books and readers and your personal experiences. Just to get us started, we're going to talk a little bit about why we read tarot, what our purpose for it is, what are the basic materials that we need or that we're working with, some of the myths of tarot, a couple of basics for practicing this type of tarot reading, tarology, and what not to do or what to avoid as a tarologist, as a tarot reader. And then after we've gone over those basics, or that preliminary information, we will dive into the major arcana, minor arcana, some just the basic symbolisms, the distribution of the suits, etc. We'll create a basis in numerology, the tarot's numerology specifically. Talk a little bit about reversals and practice some spreads. That's just a little breakdown of where we're going to go today, what our journey is going to look like. A lot of it you're going to notice is mindset related, Because being a tarologist, being a tarot reader, being someone who genuinely works with the tarot becomes a part of a way of life. Because when you read tarot, you can't be judgmental. You can't think in terms of black and white or good and bad or positive and negative. It is your job as a tarologist to know how to utilize the energy at your disposal. Because there is no truth, there is no ultimate truth in the words that we speak. They are our fabrication. Our symbols are our creation. And the symbols that have lasted really long, have stayed with us as archetypes, create this almost like a conversational rhythm between the back of our head and the front of our head. Definitely suggest that while we do this, we remember to breathe, to just every few minutes or so check that we're breathing. In our tarologist mindset, everything is a symbol. Our lives are all completely symbolic. The way we live our lives through the linguistic in the conscious realm is its own kind of symbolic. And the way our unconscious lives is a totally visual kind of symbolic. And this connection between the conscious linguistic and the unconscious visual is where our archetypal memory and knowledge lie. And that's why we need story to be able to heal, to help. The healing we're trying to do, the impact we're trying to make is not on our conscious mind or on the conscious querent in front of us. It's on their subconscious programming. It's on what's already lying way beneath the surface. That is what we want to activate so that it does not continue to move in the same way it has been moving. We want to create this paradigm shift in the unconscious. And to do that, we need to speak its language, which is the language of images, symbols, and archetypes. Everything we work with and experience most closely as a collective become our symbols. The same way everything that you work with most closely becomes your symbol, like a sentimental object that you have. Something collective, for example, like in the modern age, would be your cell phone. And this is a relatively new tool, a new thing in our lives, but this is an archetype. People dream of losing their cell phones, finding their cell phones, breaking their cell phones, losing cell phone connection. And when people are having these dreams, they're usually having trouble communicating in their everyday lives. They're having a communication problem. They don't feel understood. They're not understanding others. Essentially, the archetype is that thing, person, place, from objects in nature to the man-made. What they all have in common is that their impact on our lives as humans or as individuals is massive and traumatic and sublime, like a tsunami, like the presence of a mother or the absence of a mother or a father, like your cell phone and the ability to be so accessible and so connected. Instead of learning the cards, instead of learning the meaning of the cards, what we want to develop is an understanding of the language in the imagery. We want to understand them individually, the cards, each card and each image individually, and as a whole, as part of a whole deck. And just immerse ourselves in the logic of symbolism. And as like fancy as it might sound, this is not something that we don't already have. We already understand the logic of symbolism deep down. And it is my personal belief from my experience, what I've seen from teaching people to read and reading other people and watching them read. The only thing separating most people from their symbolic insight and their conscious mind is some kind of shame or fear and this shyness away from being able to play really and just go with your imagination. Just kind of say that, yeah, I could see this person jumping off a cliff and, you know, bursting into flames. You might see it and think it, but a lot of the time you don't want to say it because you don't want to sound silly, or you don't want to sound like a child, or, we have these masks that we all feel we need to uphold. And that's why tarot is so perfect for us, because this is the space where you don't need a mask. This is that one space that you can give to yourself and have for you and your friends and you and others, where everyone takes the masks off and just plays. Let's just play around with what we see and what we project onto all of this very animated, very colorful, very versatile imagery. One of the reasons I love the Smith Waite so much is that it is so animated. There already feels like there is movement in all the colors and characters, as opposed to like the Marseille. The minor arcana are all very abstract, a lot harder to read. It's a lot more detailed. You have to pay attention to shading and lines. On the notion of play, tarot is, before all else, before even what we're using it for and what we want to use it for, it is for sure, without a doubt, a game. It started as a game. Fortune telling developed sometime out of it. No one is really sure when or where or how. But what we are 1,000% a game that you can try when you first have a new deck, is to just gather like 2 or 3 friends, 4 friends, as many as you want, really. And you shuffle the deck, lay it place down on the table, and you go around taking turns, pulling a card and creating a narrative element out of it. So you'll like, say you pull the temperance and you're like, one day I woke up and thought, let me distill all this wine that I had left in the cellar, for example. And then the next person will pull the next card and build on your story. And you just keep going. So that's a great way to just warm yourself up to playing. As funny as it sounds, we do need to be warmed up to play. What we want to do as tarologists, or in reading as tarologists, is to understand the cards and practice this combination of intuition, imagination, and play in order to help us connect and heal, help one another heal. I know a lot of people like to read for themselves and like to use the cards for divination. I don't teach divination at all, but I like to approach the cards in this tarology way because I feel that the magic, the true magic of the tarot, is between one person and another. Because tarot, in essence, as you'll see when you look at the cards all together, like as I had sent you the example of, when you start looking at them and taking the numerology into consideration and all of the characters, you notice how there is this constant flow throughout the tarot between active and receptive. And when a reader is reading for a querent and a querent is listening to a reader, you're also mimicking and embodying the real essence of the tarot, that flow, that back and forth, to help the other see what is invisible to them and what has become visible to you via your mirroring and your use of this mirror, the tarot. 2 basic questions that I get asked: which deck do I start with and what else do I need? You can really start with any deck you want, but I would suggest starting with the Smith Waite, and I know a lot of people do as well, just because so many modern decks are built on it. And once you have a grasp of the Smith Waite, you can really read a lot more deeply into any other modern deck, because modern decks won't, most of the time, won't give you too much to work with that I know of. There might be some really impressive decks out there that are new that I'm not aware of. Or if you want less Christian imagery and esoterica and more free association, archetypal, abstract imagery, go with the Marseille, because the Waite Smith or Smith Waite is based on the Marseille. And in terms of any other tools or things you need, the only other thing you might need is like a cloth to lay the cards down on and to wrap them with, or you can get a little bag to wrap them with. I like to wrap mine in a cloth. I have a purple cloth, this violet velvet cloth, And I would suggest Violet. I got mine as part of a gift, a deck that was gifted to me, and now I use it for my Smith Waite cards. But I was reading the other day in Jodorowsky, and he suggests using Violet because it helps you see better, gives you more visual clarity. Great little serendipity there. Now, some of the myths, quick myths. One, you can't buy your own deck. You need to be gifted a deck. No, not true. This is very modern, very new. If you feel called to read tarot, don't wait around for someone to give you a deck. Go get your own deck and get your, bestie to go get their own deck as well. Two, the tarot is Egyptian. This was an assumption made by Frenchman and Freemason Antoine Court de Geblin. He made it without any proof, assumed that this is what it was, and he gave, his personal proof as to why this is true, but no, like, this is where I found these images in this ancient Egyptian cellar, etc. No proof for the claim, but it resonated with a lot of occult scholars. And over the years, it just caught on. And everyone was convinced that it was not only Egyptian, but also that it corresponded to the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, that it was connected to the astrological zodiac. And we have all of these great systems that kind of grow out of Court de Geblin's first little obsession with the tarot. And finally, tarot is fortune telling. Like I said, tarot is not, cards were not used originally for fortune telling. They were used as a game for card games. We don't know when or how they developed, spread into divination, but we here are not learning how to divinate, and we're not learning how to read the future. And you'll see that when we do the 3-card spread, instead of saying this is the past, this is the present, this is the future, we want to keep in mind that although we experience time linearly, and we can only lay these cards out linearly for them to be clear to us, the past and the present and every other moment besides exists only in this moment here and now, within the potentialities of what you are carrying in this moment now, or what the querent is carrying, what's on their mind and where they're at. So when we're reading past, present, and future, we're reading what energy am I carrying now? The present, we're reading what has this energy brought me to? Where have I brought myself? And the future, where am I taking myself? What am I bringing upon me? So that all of our understanding is within the context of the present, and does not set any kind of future in stone. We never want to say, this is going to happen. This is for sure yes, and this is for sure no. Before we continue and dive into some of the deeper basics and the what not to do's, I want you to pull out your decks and wash your deck first and foremost. And by wash the deck, I mean just shuffle it like a regular card deck. If you came to one of my last workshops, you know that this concept of washing the deck to me is blessed in a way. In my mind, you must wash the deck every time. Like whatever you read, whoever you read, even if you're going to shuffle them face down on the table, wash the deck first. And I got this from the prophet beggar woman from my town, Layla. Always wash the deck. Now, in terms of cutting, you don't have to cut. You can if you want to. I like to cut when it's meaningful to me. So, for example, when I'm reading people online in one-on-one meetings, I will ask them if they would like the cards cut once or twice, because we're online and because I want to add that extra bit of their energy to the deck, their intention to the deck, besides what I've already attempted to channel and open up to. If I'm reading for myself, I won't cut the deck. I'll pull the cards that I see usually. And otherwise, when I'm reading live for other people, I let my intuition decide before I'm finished shuffling. So today, I'm not going to cut the deck. I've got Death at the bottom. Love it. Very here for it. And what we're going to do once you've done cutting, done shuffling, what I want you to do is open 3 cards face up on the table in front of you. Now, if any of them are in reverse, I want you to disregard them, turn them over, make them upright. I just want you to look at them, meditate on them, while I tell you a little bit about the history of the cards. Like I said, they were a game, and we're pretty sure they came through the Moors. Some of the earliest decks are from the Moors, and their designs are replicated on the Marseille Tarot. And then the Smith Waite really goes in another direction, especially with the pip cards, with the minor arcana. And Smith actually she painted the minor arcana mostly on her own without any direction from Edward Waite. He mostly focused on the major arcana and on the journey of the major arcana, while she was taking bits and pieces from here and there, other decks, inspiration from the art of the times. We're in the midst of the arts and crafts movement and Art Nouveau in Britain, West Europe, the US. And there's this romanticism, this romantic obsession with the simple life, the country life, the green fields, the house with the brick red roof, the peasantry, the peasants' clothing, kings and queens, just a simpler, rural, pre-industrial type of life. And there was a big reaction in the arts to this in the late 1800s and early 1900s, in art and literature and theater, in architecture. And Smith is really leaning into the arts and crafts, the craftsman movement. It's got this very wholesome vibe, antediluvian almost, especially in cards like the Four of Wands or the Ten of Cups or the Sun or the Garden of Eden, the Lovers. Around the 11th century, 12th century, they're entering Europe through the Muslim world and Muslim conquests in Andalusia. And then they're moving into Italy and France, and they kind of come and go throughout the 1300s, 1400s, 1500s, until in the 1600s, we have that first Marseille deck that keeps developing till it's solidified in the 1700s. Gebelin gets his hands on it, says these are Egyptian. Eliphas Levi and Aliette go next level. They just run with this idea. They take it to this whole other occult realm. There's a rise in occultism in Britain and America. Everything is kind of happening at the same time. The art movement, the occult movement, the turn away from God, Nietzsche's saying God is dead. Like all of this is happening throughout the 19th century as it's coming to a close and the machine is taking over. And then these cards come into existence in the early 1900s, these Smith Waite cards. And they create a massive boom. These are the most popular cards to have ever been made. And they're still being used and remade, reprinted, people being inspired by them, and us here studying them. I'm going to give you 5 to 7 minutes to open up your notebooks and write down what you see in these cards individually, for sure, but more so with a focus on the overall story. What kind of narrative could be extracted from what you see? And then I want you to ask that question again a second time. What other narrative could be extracted from what I see? And a third time, hopefully. So 5 to 7 minutes. See if you can come up with 3 different narratives that come out of the 3 cards in front of you.
Don't come for me, but what's the second interpretation that we're supposed to do?
Yours. You're looking for 3 potential narratives, 3 different narratives that appear from the same 3 cards. 6 of Wands, King of Cups, Queen of Cups. For example, 6 of Wands is the guy riding in on the horse with the wreaths. He's all victorious and happy and stuff. So someone comes home victorious, the people make him king, and he finds his queen and gets married. That's, one narrative. Just play with it. You're not reading yourself. You're not doing anything fancy or deep. Just making stories. You're writing 3 separate stories. We've got to move forward. Leave these cards in front of you and your notes next to you. And let's just talk about a couple of things. The basics of what we're doing, like where we want to keep our mindset and what we want to avoid. Tarot is a great tool for self realization and your personal journey, but the tarot's magic is at its height when it is placed between 2 people, an active and a receptive participant, mirroring the tarot itself and helping each other heal. And Jodorowsky used the term tarology, and I'm using it after him to differentiate this practice from fortune telling. And he says, in The Way of the Tarot, he says, it seemed to me that instead of using the tarot like a crystal ball, making it a tool that enabled exotic seers to penetrate hypothetical futures, I would put it into service for a new form of psychoanalysis, tarology. This active, receptive, healing practice, essentially. We are using this above everything else, above all else, to connect with each other and help one another in our healing journey and healing process. Now, another thing is that as you observed now in this little exercise we did, there is no one meaning to be deduced from a card. Tarot is not a game of deduction. It is the opposite. It's a game of induction. And every card unravels from the specific situation to the universal with several layers of story, potential, symbol. And it is up to you, the reader, or us as readers, and our context and our understanding of the querent's context that makes a quality reading so that you're able to really find the thread that is most relevant to the person in front of you, not just to you or to what appears to be in the cards. Another thing is that as a reader, as a tarologist, we will always be limited by our perspective and our level of awareness. So what makes a better tarot reader really in the broadest sense is the person with the most expanded consciousness, the most expanded awareness. The more we can engage in practices that expand our consciousness, learning new things, new languages about new people, meditating, having experiences, learning about ourselves, etc. There's a million ways, Yanni, for us to expand our consciousness, which we're constantly doing as human beings, however unconsciously. But the person who is consciously working with their awareness and expanding their view of the world and constantly changing their perspective and shifting their mindset, this will be the better tarot reader or the better tarologist. Because the more expanded your conscious awareness, the less likely that your ego will have a role to play when you're reading someone else's cards. And this is probably the biggest problem that readers face, is that their own ego gets in the way of the reading. They aren't able to really become that mirror for the person, or really the doormat. It's like the level of being you want to be as a reader. You're the nothing in the conversation. You're just the threshold, the mat on the threshold that the person steps on to walk into their new self or to their new realization. This one is controversial. The quality of the reading does not depend on the question, but on the reader's response and their ability to answer not only the question, but what is coming through the question. Because there is no such thing as a dumb question or a superficial question or shallow question. Any question will reveal something to you as the reader and is already sending the message. Because if it were just a matter of the question itself, like, should I or shouldn't I eat out tonight? Okay, this is what the person wants to ask the tarot. Should I or shouldn't I order in? Should I get takeout? What you'll probably think is, oh, that's not a good question to ask the tarot. You can't ask that. But really, what the person is saying, for them to come to the tarot with a question like this means that there's something going on beneath the question itself. The question is loaded and has a deeper question within it, in that maybe this person is trying to save their money. Maybe they are not good with their finances, and they're asking because they already feel guilty about spending money right now on takeout. So they're like, let me ask the cards. Really, what they're asking is, how can I be more responsible with my money, with my finances? Or maybe they are overeating and they're not comfortable with themselves and they want like some kind of affirmation from the deck to tell them no, step back, or yes, go ahead. Again, they're not asking about the takeout. They're asking, how can I be more comfortable in my body? What can I do to become more comfortable in my body? So there's no bad question, dumb question, shallow question. The quality of the reading does not depend on the question. It depends on the reader and what they're able to understand from the person and see in the cards. Because another thing is that there are no yes or no answers. As a reader, you should never answer anyone with a yes, this is going to happen, or no, this is definitely not going to happen, because nothing is set in stone and everything is subject to probability and subject to the probability and possibility embedded in this moment, in this state of mind, in this energy, in this reading. It's not it's not like, the Moses' laws that came down or something. There's no mountain involved. These are cards on the table. This is the kind of energy you're moving in now. And if you feel compelled to say no or yes to someone, it is preferable that you say that something is possible under certain conditions. You want to see, what is the possibility here? What are the conditions that will make this thing possible? And what are the conditions that make it less possible, not impossible, even? It's either possible under some conditions and less possible under others. There's nothing that you can say for sure as a reader will or won't work or will or won't happen. A really good quote I have put here as well as one of like the fundamentals. If the world is infinite, no order is real. The world is a subjective representation that can organize itself in infinite ways. It is proper to look for the order that causes us the least suffering. If you see cards that you think are negative, it is up to you as the tarologist, as the reader, to see where the positive flow of this is. There is always to everything an opposite side. There is always in your reading the possibility for growth and newness as much as there is for grief and gloom. And it's up to you to figure out how to communicate this message to the person in front of you in a way that speaks to their subconscious so that they can have that shift. Because that's what it boils down to in the end, helping each other achieve subtle paradigm shifts via the use of imagery and symbols and unconscious, or the language of the unconscious. Now, what we're not doing as tarot readers, what we're completely avoiding as tarologists, one, judging a querent, judging somebody in front of us, their question, for the way they look, for the way they sound, for everything. Any type of judgment is a mistake, be it of yourself or of another person, but especially on the querent in front of you. Never, ever, ever judge a querent. And again, like as you can see, these are practices that once you develop them in your life, you become a better reader. If you can learn to be someone who really has no judgment, which begins with judgment for the self, you will start to see so much more than is possible when these labels are up, these definitives. This person is this, they're that. Because tarologist or tarot reader does not mistake themselves as superior to the querent in knowledge or perspective. And does not give the querent sympathy or pity. If you're going to give a querent any kind of emotion, it is empathy, not pity. Because some people come to be pitied. Some people want to indulge in their own suffering. But it is not your job as a tarot reader to indulge with someone in their suffering and give them the pity that they're seeking. It is your job to dodge all the negations and all of the, well, I can't do this and I can't do that, and to ask the right questions to take them to their realization. Because someone in that state can't really be told anything. They're not open to being told. They must find it themselves. And in those cases, you need to be extremely patient. So, daily practices and patience will also help you. You want to be very patient and very kind of cunning because you have to ask the right questions. You almost have to trick them into going where they don't want to go, but they did come to you to go. So it's tricky. It's but it's fun. I hope you encounter someone like this because it's a good time. It's a good practice. Another thing that we don't do is give advice. Clean cut, like this is what you should do advice. The word specifically should is to be avoided at all costs. If there's anything that anyone should do, according to the cards, their inner God will know what that is. And their inner God will tell them that. They will move them there. You want to avoid saying should, you can give like tools and offer exercises and things that the querent could do to help their situation or to help them reach a specific goal or get closer to something that they have asked about, things that can be done, could be done, tools and experiments, etc., but not shoulds and no like threats. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. No threats and no shoulds, no definitives. Because there are no definitives in life in general. And the more you understand this, the more that you see it in your life, in your experience, the better of a reader you will be as well. Because you'll understand the game before all else. That's what it is. That's what life is, really. Another thing is not to give praise or make promises. So the cards don't like come out and say, oh, you are wonderful. You are amazing. You are the goddess of the skies. You are all of this. You are all of that. You can do that personally from you to someone that you love, sure. But as a tarot, that just as a tarot reader, you're not there to praise someone and tell them that it's all going to be okay and make promises for them. That doesn't heal. Okay. We don't heal via hopeless positivity and delusional optimism as much as we would like to, and as much as those can sometimes be good supplementary tactics to use on top of all of the hard inner work that you're already doing as a means in themselves, like reading cards and saying to somebody they'll come back or they love you or they're definitely going to text you or they're going to do this or you're so wonderful and they're the ones who lost out, out of shoot. That doesn't help. This is grandioso, grander. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you heal. Healing is found in facing what hurts, really, facing it as it is in terms of as it hurts and where it sits in the body and how we interact with it and where I see it and how it triggers me and what triggers me. That's where we heal, facing the hurt, facing the pain, reconciling with it, and then separating from it, reaching a place where we recognize that we are not our pain. So, no great gestures of grandeur and promises, no shoulds and shouldn'ts and threats or veiled like threats, no judging the querent, no seeing ourselves as above and below. If we're seeing ourselves anywhere as the reader, we're seeing ourselves as, like I said, the doormat, the the carpet that the querent wipes their feet on before they enter into their realizations, the nothing and no one that just takes on all their shit and sends them on their way. Finally, don't lean too hard into your own subjectivity or impose your own ideals. Make it an effort when working with someone else to understand their context. This cannot really be understood. You can never understand anyone in their totality, let alone, you can't even understand yourself, let alone someone else. Which really ties back to why it's very foolish to judge, because what do you even know to judge about this person? Where are you coming off finding a word to describe someone who you haven't even seen 1% of? Come on, we're better than this. So remain critical of your own ideals and be the mirror. Remember to mirror the person. Now I'm going to give you just 2-3 minutes to look back at your cards, the first three cards we looked at, and write down anything new that you see. Potentially, ideally, a new narrative that you see. And like I said earlier, don't think too hard about this narrative. Just see what you see. Like, let's say, let me read someone's cards here. Six of Swords, Knight of Swords, Six of Cups. The Six of Swords is the one, which is the one where he's sailing away. Knight of Swords, lots of swords, and Six of Cups. It's actually an interesting reading. So, Six of Swords, you got all your shit together and ran away to follow your dream of becoming a knight. And eventually you became a knight, but you found out that, being a knight was lonely. And if you didn't have friends, none of it was worth it. So you made some friends and you offered them flowers and you all live happily ever after. That's a narrative. Frida asks, what about telling people to remember who they are or to believe in themselves or follow your heart? There's nothing wrong with that. Like, especially remember, you're reading the cards. If you have the lovers, for example, in a deck and someone is asking about a decision, etc., of course you're going to tell them to follow their heart. The cards are asking them to follow their heart. But what you're saying here, to believe in ourselves, remember who we are, follow our heart, are not necessarily messages from the tarot. They're just universally resonant aphorisms. You could say that to anyone, anytime, and it would make sense. We should remember who we are. We should believe in ourselves. We should follow our hearts. Well, remember who you are. I mean, I could speak on that one for a while, but the other two, the other two for sure. Reminds me a lot of a good therapist role. That is what Jodorowsky defined it as: alternative psychotherapy, psychospirituality. That one always makes me think of The Lion King, right? We see you snapping, Aaron.